For over 900 years, the structure all around us here has stood, but it hasn't always been in this spot.
The Ancient Spanish Monastery Museum and Gardens is an amazing place. It's the treasure of Sacramenia. It is a piece of incredible architecture that is Romanesque, pre-Gothic, and Gothic all at one place. This is the oldest building in the Western Hemisphere, built in northern Spain in the 12th century, the year 1133 of the Common Era. And for over 750 years, this was a monastic community for men in the Cistercian or Trappist tradition. In the 1830s, there was a civil war. And after that, the monks fled, the building was left vacant, nothing survived. They took the tiles off the roof, they took the doors off the hinges, and local farmers came and took the hinges to use on their farms. So it was just a shell of a building. In 1920, William Randolph Hearst bought 5 of these buildings, had them dismantled and shipped to the United States. There's 35,000 stones, some of them weigh 1.5 tons. Originally, Mr. Hearst wanted to take the cloisters to California to add to San Simeon, his wonderful castle that he had built there. However, he started the purchase of the building in the 1920s. Once the purchase was finalized and they began to dismantle the building, they took the stones and shipped them to Brooklyn, New York. Mr. Hearst was ready to start building in the late 1920s, early 1930s in California. But as we all know, in 1929, the stock market crashed. And when that happened, Mr. Hearst, along with Mr. Rockefeller of Standard Oil, spent the next few years in Europe trying to stabilize the US economy. So the stones just stayed where they were. Mr. Hearst was ready to go again in 1941 when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And so because of the onset of World War II, the stones remained in Brooklyn, New York. After the war ended, the whole world had more important things to do than to reconstruct a Spanish monastery in the United States. So that was put off. And of course, the idea was to do that in the early 50s. Sadly, Mr. Hearst died in 1951, and so all of the stones were part of his estate. None of his heirs really wanted 35,000 stones. They were purchased by 2 businessmen from Ohio with the idea that they would build a museum along the Florida coast, that this would be a place for people to bring the kids, would be educational. What are you going to do when you've taken a vacation from up north and it's raining for 2 or 3 days? Well, you go to Tampa and St. Pete, you leave the East Coast and go to the West Coast of Florida in search of sunshine. So they thought if they could have things for families to do, something that would be educational, and even for retirees that would be of interest, this would be an ideal spot for a museum.
Over 100,000 people visit the Ancient Spanish Monastery each year. And for each one of them, their visit comes with a different motivation.
This place has a very nice meaning for me. I came here about 21 years ago. I'm a local. It's nice to have something with a lot of history. Miami gets kind of lost in the parties and the nightlife, and I think that this kind of commemorates what we really should be focusing on, which is our history.
This was taken by an American multimillionaire in the 1920s while there was a lot of civil unrest in Spain. It would be impossible for a treasure like this, an architectural treasure, to be removed from any European country today. It is a source of great pride for me to know that this building is being used now for the purpose for which it was originally intended. And of course, that's also a comfort to the people, not only in Sacramenia, but also in Spain, to know that this cultural heritage site is being an ambassador for Spanish history. Part of their legacy is here for people in the United States to see and visit. One of the things that's been very moving to me is seeing some of these octogenarians, old Cuban men in their late 80s, early 90s, as they walk along these walls and they trace the stone carvings with their fingers. And when I ask them what they are thinking, they will say to me, well, Father, my grandparents were from Spain. I never had the chance to travel to Spain, and this is as close as I've ever going to be. So that's kind of a powerful way that we use history to tell stories.